Welcome back to Beyond the A Block, a blog and podcast that aims to tell the stories written beyond life's lead. I'm Carla Ray. I'm a broadcast journalist with more than 17 years experience telling stories. And today I've got a really good one for you. I'm so excited for you to meet this couple. They have turned a hobby into a full-fledged business, allowing them to leave their corporate jobs for a more creative and freeing life of flipping furniture. Now, you've probably seen furniture on the side of the road before and thought, why would somebody just throw that out? Well, they started collecting things along the way in their lives. Janelle Schwartz, who you're about to meet, says that she was always a bit of a collector and that her family would keep things with the intent of reusing them or maybe upcycling them to use later in life. Well, her husband, Jonathan, was not about that. He did not like the clutter that started to collect inside one of their guest rooms when they were engaged to be married. And he begged his wife for something that he could sell from that room. Turned out that it was a piece of mid-century furniture. He didn't even know anything about the era. And now they have turned it into a very successful store here in Orlando that ships around the country. Beautiful pieces of furniture that all started from an idea of, could we just get some of this clutter out of the house? Take a listen. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm really excited to talk to you because I've been an Instagram follower and fan of Warehaus, I think from the very beginning when you guys got started. But I know that this isn't something you have done your entire lives. So talk to me about how you got to this point and maybe the idea behind Warehaus. Whose idea was it and how did you get started?
Okay, so I think basically we both had corporate jobs and we were looking for an alternative means for income, just to assist us in paying for our wedding. We were renting and we were doing pretty well in our jobs, but we just didn't want to fork out the cash that it takes to pay for a wedding. So I had this habit of stockpiling furniture. I come from a long line of antiquers and people that just like to buy things and reuse them, particularly my mother. And she would take me to these garage sales and all of these things. So I had a habit of collecting these things with the intention of turning them into something that I would use. It just got to a point where I started kind of collecting too much, and it was in a third bedroom in the house we were renting. And then every time he would go in there, he'd be like, "You need to get rid of something because you keep bringing in stuff and we can't, you're not even using it. We don't even have a dining room table and you're collecting chairs and all of these things." So he basically was like, "Give me something that I can sell and get rid of because this is driving me nuts." Because that's the reality of it is that he's very minimalist and I'm the opposite of that. So he took a set of chairs that I gave him the green light to sell, and he posted it on Craigslist. That was in the age of Craigslist. So it was like how long ago?
11 years ago.
Yeah.
11
So
years
something around there. And he posted it and he was just like, he got this really insane reaction from people wanting to drive from really far to come and buy these chairs. And it was ridiculous. I bought the chairs for like $30. It wasn't anything, that I thought was moving or like
They
that.
were also pink in color.
I liked them because they were pink.
They were definitely not my vibe at the
Yeah.
So
time.
they weren't like a classic mid-century
They
piece.
were.
They were.
Someone had just painted them
and covered them in like a white and blue fabric. They were very off brand for us.
But I really liked it. Well, we didn't have a brand or a style.
We would never have sold that now, let's say.
Yeah.
But they were something to the effect of people wanting to buy them and drive from Gainesville to buy them. So he sold them for, I think, $100.
So the long story short is the lady called immediately, told me, "I'll drive right now and I'll pay you double what you're asking for if you hold them for me." And I've been in sales and marketing for pretty much my whole adult life. And my like light bulb went off and I was like, what are these and why?
Yeah.
So the lady came and she actually gave us a lot of information and was like, oh, these are mid-century and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, mid-century? I didn't even know what that term was at the time. I mean, it was before the whole mid-century thing became super popular.
Yes, it was before like Mad Men came out and stuff like that.
And I looked at her and I was like, go get me more mid-century, whatever that is.
Yeah. And I had been collecting these things, but not knowing that they had a certain era attached to them. I mean, I knew that they were old, but I just like the style. I like the style. So I would collect these things that were in the style of that. And then he was just like, he had never heard of, I mean, he had all brand new furniture. When we joined our homes together to live together before we got married, he had like all modern furniture. He didn't have any antique stuff. And I had like all antique stuff. So he was like, these styles do not complement each other. Right. So we have to get rid of some of this. And so in doing that, that's how this was born. Cause he basically was like, whatever this is, people want it. And you have to figure out how to get more of it. So I started actually looking for more of it. And I remember, I'll never forget it because I found this set of dressers that I liked. They were $75. And we drove to like Dunedin.
Largo.
No, it wasn't Largo. Oh, was it?
It was far. It was really far.
I don't know. It was something.
It was a city we had never gone to ever in Florida.
It was very creepy. Yeah. And so we go and we buy these dressers from this really cute like old couple or whatever. And Jonathan turns around and he sells them for like $900. Right? There was something like that. So in that, we were like, this is crazy. And at the time, that was a really good deal, I guess, for these dressers. And because it was a matching set. And so we very quickly stockpiled a lot of money to pay for our wedding. And then after that, he's very business minded. So for him, he was like, he's always had his own business, like on the side. He's always had outside of his corporate career, he had these aspirations to have his own business. I am not that person. I am just like a, daydreamer type person that will do things at like risk and flight and whatever, but he is very business goal minded. So after our wedding, he was like, now we don't have a wedding to pay for. We can save for like trips or something like that. It's funny money. Basically, it was funny money. And, but he can't just do things at a very,
leisurely just for fun. It's not ever just for fun.
No, that's not how he functions. So when he started seeing that this gained traction and more traction, he just continued, doing the research and doing the work and trying to grow something that we had no idea was going to be anything. So, I mean, he wasn't even like a handy furniture fixer person at all. Like he just wasn't into.
I never used a power tool in my life before all of this, ever.
So it's comical because he was more of he has like a finance background. He's more of like a techie guy, and he's just someone who can function more with systems and things like that versus like hands-on carpentry and stuff like that. So
but that's good because you need a business mind to run a business.
100%. If it was just me, it would have never turned into what it is. It had to be the right combination of efforts because I'm simply just not that motivated in the sense of I'm more like, this is great. It works for what it is right in this moment. And he's just like, no, I'm planning to structure this to make this something that benefits me. And that's how that ended up happening. So eventually he quit his corporate job. I stayed in mine because
she was afraid to leave, cut the cord.
I'm not a risk taker in that regard. I'm not a risk taker. I've been basing my life's financial structure on income that I'm secure with my entire life.
Yeah.
Because was on my own very early age and I had to support myself. So I was like, you need this dependency of a reliable income. And he was more like, no, I know that I can make this income and make it be what I need it to be. He's just very confident in his ability to do that. And he's right. So honestly, we had a really successful online business where he managed our whole online business for years.
We used to sell primarily on Etsy when Etsy was in its kind of early stages.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where it really all started, was online. There was no store or customer interactions or really any social media. There wasn't anything. It was just like find cool stuff, fix it, put it online and sell it. And that's kind of how it got started. And it kind of just steamrolled along from there into what it is now.
Yeah. We've even had some pretty famous people buy stuff from us that we didn't realize. And then now we were just like, oh my God, that's so cool. Someone bought a table for John Malkovich in New York and like told us about it. And then when Orange is the New Black came out, the lead actress in Orange is the New Black bought like these lamps from us that were really cool. So it was just
we're like, wow, people really like this stuff. And
that's amazing.
Yeah. So I definitely, from my business sense, saw an opportunity to keep going from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the beginning, you said you were both working in corporate jobs and this was just a side hustle. Can you tell me about your corporate life? What were you doing full time at that time?
You have like a really extensive.
I mean, I guess I've had many jobs in corporate, but prior to Warehaus, I was a sales and marketing director for like an entertainment company. So I worked in entertainment for years prior to all of this. So I have like no connection to what I'm doing now, but it was a similar concept of, market product, sell product. So I have probably about 20 years experience in that prior to getting involved in this business. Oh my God, 20 years. Yikes.
Yeah. But it was like a nationwide director job. So he would travel like 2 weeks out of the month. So he wasn't really home.
No.
A lot of the time.
And when I was home, I wanted to work on furniture most of the time. But
he decided he actually started liking it.
Yeah. But I've worked in corporate finance. I worked in sales and marketing, mostly in the entertainment sector. But then I also worked in high finance. I worked in the stock market. I've done a little bit of insurance. I've done a little bit of everything over the years. But like Janelle said, I always kind of had aspirations to be an entrepreneur in some way and trying to find the right fit for me. And then this just kind of fit in surprisingly well. And so it's kind of my background.
And I was basically, I had a number of sales positions myself. And the one that I was in was I was a manager. I was managing a showroom of like a design showroom which is odd because I have no real design sense, but I have logical, like critical thinking. So I used to work with builders, designing bathrooms and kitchens and like picking textiles and all kinds of things. So I had a lot of accounts with a lot of the major builders in
interior designers
in the community and interior designers. So I was in connection. Oddly, I just kind of fell into that. That wasn't a plan of mine or anything. It definitely wasn't what I was going to school for. It's just something I fell into that I managed to do well at. But it was all really long hours, like working for corporate companies that weren't really looking at you as like a individual, more of like a number too. So I was a part of that.
But it sounds like those connections that you made in those jobs and the skill set that you learned in those jobs really served you well when deciding to go full steam ahead with Warehaus.
They did. They definitely did. There were synergies that we didn't realize were there.
Exactly, yes.
And then now looking back, I'm like, wow, this job taught me this. And I apply that to my business. This job taught me that, like different facets of the business that you can't like learn it all in one place. So like every experience that I had in corporate gave me kind of the tools that I didn't really know I was going to need as an entrepreneur. So it was definitely beneficial to have all those kind of different jobs and different sectors before kind of landing in what I'd call my dream job. I mean, I'm doing what I love to do, and I'm doing it for myself. So yeah, there was a lot of synergies in her as well. I mean, we're still working with some of the interior designers, a good amount of them actually. We're still working with them at Warehaus, and they're coming to us for installs and projects. And there's a lot of trust that was built with her, and there's trust, and there's a lot of trust from our customer base.
You like cross-pollinate with a lot of things. Oddly.
It's weird.
And in Miami, when we lived in Miami, I actually worked for a small business for like 6 years, and I did all of their bookkeeping and their accounting when I was in my early 20s. So I actually handled all of their bookkeeping and their taxes, and just a lot of the function that comes from administrative background. I did a lot of administration background stuff when I was in my 20s. So I now know how to do like our administrative background stuff and our operations stuff.
Thank God. That's not my bag.
Because he's definitely not that he doesn't take an interest in handling those operation things that are necessary for a business. But I just by default know how to do these things because of that experience that I actually was in for quite some time.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people have maybe ideas or like creative passions to do something like this, but they don't have the business skill set that you need to actually make it work and make money off it.
And that's the hardest part, I think, is really just applying like your creative thoughts and like the dream or the visions that you have. And it's like, once it actually gets noticed by other people and you start making money, that's when a lot of people get jammed up and they're like, oh, wait, what do I do now? You know, like, I'm not sure how to do accounting or QuickBooks or forecasting or, growth, profit and loss, like all that stuff just gets really intense when you're just trying to create something. Because I think a lot of small businesses are creatives in some way, and they have like this creative vision for whatever the job direction it is that they want to do with their company. And then once you get into it, and then you sit down with like your accountant and you're like, oh my God, like
there's a lot of different avenues.
This is very
go down to learn
a lot more than I expected it to be. And I think it's very intimidating for a lot of people. And that's why I like having her be that anchor for like a lot of the back end stuff where I can be more free to create and have different visions. And I do a lot of forecasting. So I'll be like, all right, you know what? I'll be able to look back on last summer and be like, okay, last summer we had a slowdown here, but we were successful here. So let's focus there. And she'll be like, okay, well, the numbers line up with that, so it's hard to do it by yourself. So
I can't imagine it being a one-person job where someone has to do wear all of those different hats.
We wear a lot of hats individually, but if we didn't have each other,
skills
filling the gaps in
specific skill sets. Yeah.
Because I'll be like, oh, this is a great idea. Let's do this. And she'll be like, okay, I wouldn't have thought of that, but okay, I'll go for it. And she trusts in me that I have,
definitely
good ideas, which most of the time I do. Some of the times they are a little questionable and far-fetched, but I consider myself a dreamer. So I just keep trying to change the game a little bit every time I do something, because you just have to keep kind of leveling up to stay relevant and to stay busy. And that's kind of what we're doing. Warehaus is just an evolution of ideas every day, and to the point where Janelle's like, okay, I'm idea out. Like,
we need to focus on like specific
it's
things.
Sunday. Can we not?
Oh yeah,
can we just be existing? So that's another hard part of small business, is knowing when to turn the switch off. And that's something
right, because there's no separation, right?
No.
It's just
constant. Especially if you're in a partnership with your spouse. It's like there's really no definitive line of
we had
boundary.
To create that line. We had to create those boundaries and since we created those boundaries, I think it's been really more helpful. Successful and helpful for our business and our personal life as well, because we know, okay, I'm responsible for this, you're responsible for that, and we kind of meet in the middle a little bit and talk about.
But it took some time to find like our footing there.
Took us a while. It's hard.
I'm sure. I think it's so crazy that this started from just you getting tired of her clutter.
Yeah, it's still the same. It's still the same. I'm still managing her She sees things and she knows, and I have to like learn to trust
instinctually.
She just sees it, and I'm like, really? Like,
I don't know anything about it, about certain things.
Know.
It's just an instinct.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
And she'll be like, no, this is going to be great. People are going to love it. I'm like, okay, I guess. And then sure enough, like, you know, if it flies off the shelf when we get it to the shop, and I'm just like, dang it. So I've had to really train myself.
He's had to like eat crow many times.
Too many times. Yeah. Now I'm like, now I just let it go. I'm like,
He's
okay.
like, whatever. It's fine.
It's a pink bar with holes and glass, and I don't like it. But hey, if you like it, someone else will like it. So
I think like the most crazy nugget I've taken away from this so far is that you guys knew nothing really about mid-century culture until you got into this, because now you know this is like people take this very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And there's levels of buyers and collectors and people who just like the style, and it's evolved so much since we started too, with, you know, big manufacturers getting involved in producing the same type of style. Because when we started, you know, West Elm and all these, you know, big retailers, their style was not mid-century at all. And
now everyone's mimicking that. So there's other competition for people who,
I mean, you can buy it on Amazon if you really want just the look.
Right.
Whereas before, if you wanted it, there was only one way to go, and you had to go to Etsy or eBay to get authentic, and that was way easier. But the culture of mid-century, to your point, is just people appreciate not just the style, but the quality and the story and the history of the piece. And we geek out on that stuff. So that's definitely part of the fun for us, is like telling the story. Oh, this came from this house. They were a former, you know, they worked for NASA, and they travel all over the world, and people like really connect with the stories of the piece. So it's like living a whole other life. And that's a really cool part about the business.
And it's evolved your personal style too, right? Because I've seen some pictures of your house.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean,
beautiful.
Sitting here, we're pretty mid-century heavy in our house.
Yeah.
And slowly evolving into other styles. You know, we're starting to lean more into certain shapes and round, softer edges, where mid-century can be a little bit more squared off and rigid, serious. So we're integrating more, you know, color, more texture, and we're doing the same thing at work. And people seem to be into it. I mean, we sold a dining set that had multicolored chairs. They were like,
I saw that. You got it last weekend, right? At the estate
incredible.
sale.
But like normally, I'd be like,
that's risky.
Way anyone's gonna buy that. And they were like,
and I was like, no, we'll just.
No, she pushed again. I was like, I don't know, maybe we leave that. And she's like, no way.
No,
that was a good set. And I don't even collect mid-century, but I was like, oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
It was really,
and it was in such good condition too.
Amazing condition. Yeah. Amazing condition.
But I will say that we didn't have, when we moved in together as a young couple, he did not want a lick of vintage furniture in our house.
I was like, you got this from somebody else? Like, you bought this from secondhand, or you got this from a friend?
Never in his life had he done that, or heard of anyone doing that.
I mean, she brings stuff in. I mean, she brings stuff in from the street.
Oh, we lived near a very affluent neighborhood in Miami.
We didn't live in the neighborhood.
We did not live in the neighborhood.
Like
we lived on
like
We walked our dog in the neighborhood.
So I would go walking our dog in the neighborhood, and then I would like rush back home, and I would be like, "Oh my God, get in the car!" I'm like, there's something on the curb, and he would just be like, "Absolutely not. No. That's horrific. I'm not doing that." Like that
is like me and my husband to a T. I have my whole life been an avid thrifter. My mom used to take me to Goodwill when I was a kid, and so I'm like you, Janelle, and I'm like, I see it. This is an opportunity. Totally. My husband is more like Jonathan, where like, no, that's gross. Somebody else sat in that. I'm not interested in that. But he's come around, and he now looks for stuff on the curb. So
I mean, it comes from like, well, at least in the neighborhood that I'm talking about, it came from these like $1 million homes that were really, really beautiful. And I'm like, these people didn't treat their stuff like trash. They just didn't care and put value to it, so they would just curb it, you know.
And we were just decorating our apartment with it. We weren't like selling.
So this is before. This is before that. Only way before. Yeah, the business started when we moved here. Yeah. But back then I was doing that sort of thing. So, you know, and then it's he slowly started. I mean, I'll never forget, we were on like 436 one day, and we had at the time small Mazda, like it was a Mazda.
We had a sedan.
Yeah.
It was like a car, like a regular car.
And there was a daybed couch on the side of the road of 436, was a very high traffic area. And I was like, we were like, oh my God. I'm like, stop. We have to get this. And then he pulled over and we somehow took this thing apart and slid it in the back, through the trunk, through the seats. And the trunk was open all the way home. And I think you sold that couch for.
We pulled it up off the curb. It was like a dental office or something, or it was some sort of office that had thrown a bunch of stuff out to the curb. And at the time, I remember we were struggling. It was hard. Like, it was a harder time of life for us. And it was like the universe just granted us this daybed. And it was when I tell you it was in perfect condition, not a hole, not a stain, on the curb. We were remember we were going to change her name. We had just gotten married. We were going to change her name at the Social Security office. So we were on that part of town, and that's where we were. And I was like, I'll stand here on this curb. If you need to go get a U-Haul, I'll wait. Yeah. And I mean, we brought it home, photographed it, and sold it for like $1,000 and shipped it to California within like 48 hours. It was crazy. And I'll tell you,
gosh,
David really cracked us off, because that's when I started thinking to myself, wow, like, people outside of Florida will pay a lot of money for this stuff. And that's where a lot of my thoughts came. It's funny you mentioned that. It came from that daybed. And then I was like, we need a bigger car. So we upgraded the car, and then it just started kind of going from there. Yeah. It started.
That's amazing. So $0 to over $1,000. That's a big profit turnaround.
Yeah. It was huge.
I'm sure you have a lot of those stories where you found things either on the curb or.
Yeah, we have a few of them.
We've been lucky.
Not curb. We don't have a lot of curbside stories.
That's probably our best one.
That's not something we come across often, unfortunately for us. But we do have stories where we'll find something that is like a sought after, like, prestige name item that ends up being like, was left in a home by someone that bought the home and was like getting rid of the contents of the house. And we were like, wow, yeah, like we'll take
it all.
They don't want anything. And we've just been like, we're really lucky that these were
that happened a lot.
That's happened
early on.
And it doesn't happen anymore.
Now that people are more educated as to what this stuff is and the value of it, it's just like anything, the prices for us have increased astronomically over time. There's no more just lucky finds like that. You have to really, Janelle has created a network of people that contact her, and they're resellers, and they're selling to us, and we're buying from anywhere we can, really. But those are the good old days of curbside finds.
But more proud I am that he's not above taking things off a curb.
Oh, I'll take a thing off a curb. I'll take it.
He's not above that anymore.
I'll U-turn back. Now I got a work again, so I'll throw a sofa.
There you go.
Car, I don't care.
So you said you left your corporate job first, Jonathan. When did you realize like it was time to leave and do this full time?
Well, the job that I had, the sales and marketing director job, was remote. It was pre-COVID. It was 2017 or so. Right. Yeah, it was 2017. It was before my son was born. So I was working as a sales manager. Like, we were living in this house, and I was working in my office during the day. And I kept finding we were buying and selling furniture, but we weren't really restoring anything that much. We were just kind of like finding it, cleaning it up, take a pretty picture and selling it. And I just kept finding myself leaning into the carport, which is where all the furniture was. All I wanted to do was I could not get off the computer fast enough, because I'd been in a computer for so long, for so many years. I was like, I just wanted to be outside and use my hands and be creative. So I was spending half the day on the computer and then the other half in the carport. And then those days, the time that I was in the carport versus on the computer were getting larger and larger, and the profits were growing like crazy. I mean, there was very little competition at the time. So it was just, it was like the Wild West. It was just like anything we found we could sell. And It was rather easy for the most part because I had the time. I was younger. I had a lot of energy. It was pre-kids, so I had a lot of energy, a lot of free time. And once, for me, with my business background, once I saw that I could, if I dedicated all of my time to this versus like half of my time, I could make a real business out of it. That's when I started to think to myself, like, okay, I might need to consider, because it was a good job. I mean, it was rather high paying.
He was in like an executive
position. I was like the second man below the owner. It was and I had worked really hard to get the job, and I felt bad leaving, but we were just in a situation where it was just too lucrative, and I told her I'm going to save. I had a target number in mind, and I said, if I hit this number, I'm going to leave. It's like, if I can pay my mortgage for a year, and I have all of that put to the side, I'm going to walk away, and I'm going to try to do this. Because I knew I could always go back and get another job or something, but something inside of me said, like, you got to try this. And that was in 2017. And I mean, wow, we're creeping up on 10 years.
I was scared for my life.
She was more nervous than I was. I was like, no, we're good. I got money in the bank. Bills are paid. Like, we can do this. And that was really the turning point for me, was when I created a little bit of a financial cushion for us to take that leap. And never looked back from there. It just took off like crazy because I had time to dedicate. And that's when I started really heavy with creating processes and using all of my kind of background in business to apply to my own business, which was awesome.
He even went as far as getting like classically trained by a woodworker and refinisher that's local.
I spent a summer with him.
Yeah, like an older man that taught him how to just make this wood product malleable, and like to learn how to mix these stains and these chemicals and all of these things. So he went to the extent of going as perfecting that craft before even diving even deeper into that. So he really jumps in with both feet when he does that, which is why I was confident enough to be like, okay, well, you have a really well paying job, and we just bought this house, and we just got married, and okay, like, I guess I trust you enough to leave this job and to.
But I didn't like it. I didn't like the job. That was the thing. Like, I didn't like and I was marketing director too, so I was doing a lot of graphic design for him. I was doing a lot of conceptualizing of products, and it just was very soulless. I mean, the company was great. They were really great folks, but it was just like I knew it wasn't for me. Like, it definitely, I knew once I was like really meaty into the job that I was like, oh man, this is not going to work for me like forever. Yeah. So that's why I just made the jump. And
it also pained him to grow someone else's.
Yeah, that was tough.
Like, put his efforts into growing someone else's dream, and he was so good at doing that, and not being able to do that for his own was really like eating away at him, I think.
Yeah.
So when did you feel comfortable leaving your corporate job, Janelle? Because
I never felt comfortable.
She's still not comfortable.
I never felt comfortable. I'm just not a risk taker. Like I said, I was at a point where I was not happy with where I was.
You would have gone back though. It was when we had our son.
Right.
Is when it kind of clicked for her.
So,
and I was like, you're not going back. I didn't let her go back.
He had to tell me that we had like these conversations, many of these conversations where he just assured me, he was like, if we both were in this, it will take off. It will do 2 times, 3 times more than what it's doing now. And I was like, I guess I just didn't see the value in myself or in what I could contribute to what he was doing. And I was like, I don't know. I'm like, I see what I'm good at finding things or finding ways to like, I don't know, like it involved a lot of me being the eye for the company to find the things that were suitable for our audience, like for the people that were interested in our things. And he was like, I need you. He was like, I need you. You'd understand.
I was like, if you can find the stuff for me and then I fix it and then sell it, I'm like, we're going to be unstoppable. If you can just be my eyes and be the communicator with the estate companies and the resellers. Like that was where the company really, it needed that person. And I'm like, you're that person. I'm like, just.
He convinced me of my value. I did not know like my value. And in working for a lot of places where you're just considered a number a lot of the time, you don't really feel like you're given that value. And he gave me that value and he continues to do that. So I had a very like low self-esteem when it came, or low like self-worth in regards to my work. I would go above and beyond for everybody, and above my title, above my position, always to give extra, and it was never appreciated, or it wasn't just, he's like, you keep giving to these people. He's like, you can give to us and it would benefit us versus someone else who doesn't even appreciate it and doesn't even see your efforts and how much you do. So he convinced me after we had our son, and that was even harder for me, knowing that we had to support another life on but he had already proven that the system was working. It just needed more behind it. So when that happened and I had our son, I was like, okay, well, I guess I was on maternity leave.
I said, you're on permanent maternity now. Tell them you're not coming back. Because and this particular job, I really disliked the way that they treated her. Was underappreciated. She was an absolute monster for them. She was a gold nugget and they didn't see it, and they treated her so poorly. And the management was just very unappreciative and aggressive. And I was like, why are you going to go back to that just for a guaranteed paycheck? It's not worth it. You can do this on your own. And that was 2018, and she hasn't had to go back to any job yet.
But I can say, like, to his foresight, that we grew exponentially from that point.
Yes.
So, and now talking about it, I see how that played a huge role in us starting, even because that's when we opened the physical location.
That's when we moved from the carport, which is where the business basically lived for its entire the 5 years that we were kind of just playing around with it. I never wanted to invest in overhead. I was like, we can do this from home. I'm already paying the mortgage. I'm already paying the rent. Let's just do it here. And we'd have people come to our house and buy stuff out of our living room and buy stuff off the driveway. And that's when it was really because my baby at the time would be napping, and she's like, you need to turn the sander off. And I'm like, all right,
I can't be doing that.
I got to get out of here. And I needed also that disconnect between
separation,
work and home. And that was really the catalyst for everything. We moved to a larger warehouse, and then we moved to another larger warehouse. And then that's when things started to really roll with selling things locally and dealing with local people versus selling everything out of state. It just kind of all just snowballed.
I had more time to apply to it. And then I was like, okay, well, it was really rooted in my trust in him and his ability to have this be financially sound, because he is a very financially sound person. And I was like, I can trust that. If he thought that we were going to be living, like paycheck to paycheck, so to speak, and not have the amount that we need to survive and pay what we have to pay to live. He knows that if it came to that, then he would scratch it and go back to where he had to go. So I trusted in him that he would do what he said he was going to do with it, which is wild. And then I was like, okay, I have to release control and be risky and do all of these things and just play my part in this and see what happens. So we eventually that's how it went. We stopped, and I was with a baby strapped to me, going to all
estate
of these
sales.
Estate sales, or meeting with people in estates and going and
toting him around.
He was strapped to me for the longest time.
That's great.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Janelle, I want to play psychologist here for a second, because you said a couple things that made my ears perk up. One, you had to support yourself at a young age. And two, you still are not comfortable not earning a paycheck from a traditional work setting. It seems to me like you have what a lot of people have talked to me about, this scarcity mindset, that it's never going to be enough. Even now with the success that you have, you find yourself going, okay, is this real life? How do you get past that?
All the time. I don't know that there really is getting past it when you're so used to this like societal norm of having to be constantly on and constantly working and to survive. It was a survival thing for me.
But I think you have a lot of faith. She has a lot of faith too in that it's going to work. And it's going to continue to grow. And she shares that with me too, because I have the same stressors.
He does.
Just the same of every small business, I think, saying, "Oh, this is it. We're not going to make it."
He has those moments more.
It happens a lot. And I look to her, and she's like, "No, we're good. We're good." And then she gets down on it, and I'm like, "No, we're good. We're good." So yeah, we really like ping pong off of each other in those moments when the scarcity is challenging.
Yeah, I know that there's this mindset of that you have to hustle all the time and that you need to survive. And I think we both were in a place in our lives where we've always had to survive because we just had to rely on ourselves to support ourselves. Like we both lived alone. We
at a young age.
We lived. I lived by myself probably for 8 years as a young person in Miami, which is pretty rough. It can be pretty rough at times, and not knowing whether deciding whether to put $10 of gas in your tank or go to the grocery store. These types of things where you learn to survive on very little. So I believe that both of us, knowing that we come from that, we are very responsible with how we live. Like we don't live above our means, and we're very comfortable. And I think that we both appreciate, and I personally appreciate what we've done to arrive here, and I see how much we have. So for me, I'm like, well, while yes, it's not a concrete amount every month that we see come through. It varies, but over time, you do see like a baseline of what you are used to and what it's just projected what you've done and as long as you keep doing what you're doing and you put your efforts behind it, then you can at least have security in that alone. And knowing that functions. And then when you are in a position where you have to pivot, I mean, we've had to pivot our whole lives to continue to support ourselves. You learn to pivot. So you learn that when things are not going the way you want them to, and you are afraid of things, of lacking what you need, you are like, okay, well, what do I do now? So you just have this survival mentality of I have to make it work. So you don't have any other option but to survive through that. And I think that scarcity mindset is just ingrained as a society. It's kind of ingrained in you if you grew up where you don't you haven't had like this abundance throughout your life, and you learn to appreciate and value more of the things that are just easy and not as complicated, and you're just like, this is really all I need, like to be happy. So you don't strive. It's not that you don't strive for more, because you always strive for more, but then you're always like super surprised with yourself that you were able to do that, and then you appreciate that more and you put more value to it. So it doesn't become you. I think you just never stay stagnant in this. Oh, it's just always going to be there. You always have to continue to strive for that with that survival instinct.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, like I said, I'm a fan of Warehaus, and I saw the big haul from the estate sale last week with the multicolored chairs. And do you think that that is part of the secret sauce, is that you have the buying power to take a bunch of things at once? Because I have to think that the person who bought that table from you could have just as easily gone to an estate sale themselves and picked it out. Is it the strength in numbers that you have for being able to get a lot of inventory at once?
So I think that there's
yes and no.
Yeah.
I mean, trust me, I lose sleep every time when we do a big buy like that, because I'm like, oh man, it's nerve-wracking a bit because you're kind of guessing what people are going to want. But yeah, I do believe, and we've said this from the beginning, that since the day Warehaus started, we've always had a lot to offer people. And when some of our other maybe competitors or people that are just trying to get kind of in the game, so to speak, or flip stuff, doing it one at a time is much harder.
Yeah.
So I'd say that the amount of things, when we have a lot, we sell a lot for sure. But we also have a lot of relationships with people that come to us because they know, well, like that particular buy, they were like, I need you to take it all. So you can't just kind of cherry pick the cool stuff. Like we don't live here. Our parents aren't able to move these things along. So it's all or none.
So this was a phone call that
was an email
or an email that was placed by someone, the responsible person for the estate. It wasn't, this wasn't like a company. So we get calls like that to where they want you to come in, make an assessment, do like an appraisal of the items that are there, and then leave either a bulk bid or an itemized bid for things. And then if it hits their mark, that their targeted number, then we move forward, or they are going to take other offers from other people who are able to front that kind of money out. So yes, it's much easier. And especially when we get calls or emails like that, or we get contacted like that, specifically from people who are looking to just unload everything,
clear the house.
Yeah. So there is definitely a benefit in being able to, and mind you, this isn't like we can go to this person's house and swipe a credit card. That's not how that works, right? So with estate sale companies, it's that's more to the public, and that's a little bit more, I want to say there's more competition there, but there's also a lot of haggling that happens in those situations where if you're the person that is selling all of the estate, you're not only allowing someone to go in and price the items that you own, then they're taking a percentage of it. And then you also have the end user or the consumer coming in and saying, well, I'm not going to pay this amount. I'll offer you this much. And then at the end, some people wait until in estate sales till they're 50% off. And then you're not really getting the full value of what you want for the piece as the seller, right? So it's easier to come to people like us who will pay your value, the value you want.
They also know we're reselling it too. So there's no, they know what we're doing. So they know our offers will be fair, but based on what we can sell it for, not what they necessarily think it's worth. But yeah, to your question, yes, one of our major advantages of being successful for this long is our ability to buy in bulk. That's always been our backbone. That's always been our Achilles heel. And it's hard to find those bulk buys where that house just happened to have all the cool stuff. A lot of times there's some stuff where you're like, okay, I guess I'll take this if I have to.
Yeah.
And we do that and we'll unload it. She has family members that work for the Boys and Girls Club. So sometimes we'll just unload the pieces that we don't want to carry back. We'll just donate it out to help us bring in the things that we want. But yeah, that's definitely the name of the game for us is bulk buying.
And it is an advantage. It is an advantage when you are able to do that.
Yeah.
You're not just going to a Friday, Saturday estate sale and competing with the people who are there. The commoners like me who are there looking through the old.
I wouldn't say that. We started
clothes and shoes.
No?
We definitely started that way.
No, and hey, don't get me wrong. I love a good estate sale. I love getting in there.
Too.
I love pulling tags and like seeing what other treasures are hiding behind the scenes. You know, like that's I just went to one the other day, and I was like, oh my God, there's like so much going on here. We still like digging through boxes and records and books and, you know, all the cool little intricacies of someone's house, a lifetime collection. Like that's the stuff I think after all these years of flipping large furniture, like that's the fun part for us is being able to get in there and dig through someone's lifetime of a collection of things. And usually if they have cool furniture, they have cool stuff. So, but yeah, no, we haven't gone to like estate sales in a while because we're just jamming along in the shop and it's challenging. Plus we have the stores open on the weekends. We have a 5-year-old now who demands a lot of our time and attention. So that time is definitely limited, a lot more limited now.
And when we do other, like our other sources of finding things like this or buying things like this, it does usually involve being in touch with, let's just say, like the estate sale company that wants to get full value for certain items. Yeah. And they know that we will pay the value that they want versus let it sit and then have to discount it throughout the days, you know, that follow of an estate sale where you have to decrease their prices because it's you have to sell it. So we will likely get contacted pre-estate sale
before they've even like listed it anywhere. They'll contact us.
Yeah, because they know that we'll pay what they want, what the client wants.
More fair market value for the stuff.
Yeah. It's awesome. Well, you guys have gone from just collecting stuff in your guest room to having a full-fledged business and people line up outside your door. I mean, it's got to be surreal sometimes to see, looking back, how much it's exploded.
It is. When I scroll back through like Instagram, if I'm like looking for something or a reference post or something, and I'm just like, wow, like I'll scroll all the way down sometimes and just look at those first few posts and say like, wow, like we were in our kitchen scrubbing dressers in a rental on Fairbanks, and it is surreal. It is. And
I don't think we're ever not in awe.
No, I'm always surprised. I'm always like, can you believe like that just happened? Or can you believe we just sold that? Or, you know, it's
just the last sale when there's a line. He gets so nervous.
Oh, I'm so nervous. I'm like listening at the door.
He doesn't understand.
I'm like, are they out there? You know? And then I open the door and I'm like, oh, wow. Like there's a lot of people out here.
It shocks him every time. And then when we get contacted by like local businesses that we know that want to work with us or, you know, we've
collaborations with like places that we go to or that we love. And they're like, no, I love you guys. And I'm like, you do? I'm like, oh my God, like I love you guys. Like I go to your place all the time and we get to work with so many interesting people that have so many interesting jobs throughout the city. That's really cool too. And that always surprises me. I'm like, oh, you're the, you know, XYZ at Disney. Like you want to buy my stuff? Like, wow, you know, and you develop some really interesting relationships.
There's people that we work with now. I'm not going to name drop them or anything, but that wanted our items like are curated by us in their restaurants and like,
and these are restaurants that we go to, like, that we eat at way outside of Warehaus.
And it's before, like in just when it's conceptual, when they're ground floor and they're, you know, there's concrete all over the place. They haven't even built the place and they invite us in and they're just like, this is a shell, but we're going to eventually turn it into this. And we want you to curate these things. And it's just crazy that we're a part of those things. So it never gets lost.
Yeah, we're working on some stuff. Like, we're working on some stuff right now that I'm like, I cannot even believe that this is happening. Like, wow. Yeah, it never
gets lost on us.
No.
At one point we were contacted by Magnolia Network, and they were wanting to do a series of about a business that does what we do, right? And so it probably was like a year's worth of back and forth interviews,
We were
conversations.
we were so close.
We were really close. But I think that we didn't have enough of like
we were too small.
We
didn't have enough people. We didn't have enough
characters,
like meat on the bone for them to like, but they loved us and so that was like,
that was crazy. We were
Skip and Joanna, if you guys are watching.
I was like, and they're like, no, they're watching it. They're watching the trailer you guys film. I'm like, this is crazy.
They created a trailer for it. It was wild.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So believe me,
come back, Magnolia.
I was like, I got more guys. I got more people. Like, come on. Yeah.
I think as we continue to go on this path and grow, we see a lot of really cool new opportunities that we didn't even imagine, because we're just us, and we're so small, and we don't look beyond that. I think that's just where
we just stay humble and grateful, and what this business has afforded us, not just in like there's not a lot of affluence in this game, but your wealth comes in your freedom, your time, your ability. If your kid gets sick, you could pick them up and bring them home and hang out with them for the day, or take a bike ride on a Tuesday morning at 9:30, or come home early if you want, or determine what talk to Carla at 10:30 on a Thursday because you want to. I think for us, that's really there's
so much wealth in that.
That's the real wealth for us, is like that freedom, because we've always been so tethered to a punch clock or a 9 to 5 or a login, and being able to just have that freedom is worth all the sweat.
Yeah.
A lot of sweat.
I volunteer at my kid's school all the time. So it's like he sees me often there. It's like this great thing for him to experience. We didn't have that. And that's just really cool to be able to give him that experience as well. So, and he comes to the store, he tries to earn money, and he learns he's learned the business. He talks about it. He's like, oh, it's our store, or, he's proud of it, and to see him take pride in the things that we do. Whereas like some parents will work, and then their kids don't really experience their work with them, and so he's seeing it from
it's just a different life that we didn't get access to as kids. So that's really like the main goal for us, is just
so there is a lot of wealth in that,
being available.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, closing thoughts.
Yeah.
For somebody who's on the bubble and is hating their corporate job like you were, Jonathan, and they have this hobby that they really like doing, and they're thinking about it, what is your closing advice?
I mean, I've given this advice to some other potential entrepreneurs as well, and I will go down as saying this: the most important thing is having security financially before you make the jump. You need to have something to fall back on, so that you don't have that pressure initially to pay your rent, pay your mortgage, pay your car payment. Keep your job, but work your passion in the time that you have, and use that, whatever you make from that job, save that money and hold on to it until you have a place where you feel comfortable enough to say, you know what, even if things go belly up, I'm good. Because then that gives you the space and the freedom to create, to pivot, to try new things. Because if it wasn't for that, I don't think I would have had that same level of confidence in the beginning. Obviously you want to follow your passion. You want to follow the things that drive you, the things that motivate you, the things that you think, oh, I can do this for a lifetime. But at the end of the day, you still has to support you. And having that financial security before you make that leap, I feel for me was the most important part of things really being able to happen naturally. I didn't have to force anything, because I needed to earn money to pay my bills or to survive. But
it clears up your headspace.
Clears your headspace up too. And it gives you a lot of confidence. Plus you have proof of concept. You're like, I've already made money at this. I've already been somewhat successful in turning a profit. You have a little bit of data, and you can say, okay, this worked before, and if it doesn't work, something in the world happened or something beyond my control. But at least you have the knowledge and the data to prove, like, okay, there's proof of concept here. This will work. Because jumping in the deep end with both feet is not my style. I'm more calculated, and I feel like just to give someone, if I were to give any advice when I give entrepreneurs who I see like, no, you got something here, but just wait. be patient, stay humble, and just keep moving forward with your business while your corporate job funds your dreams. Let your corporate job fund your dreams. Yeah. And then when you reach that point to cut the cord, at that point, you're like, all right, cool. I'm as secure as I can be, and I'm gonna try, you know?
You give yourself a time frame too. You're just like,
I said 12 months. I was like, if this isn't working in 12 months, I'll go back. And I was like, month 1, I was like, I'm not going back. I'm out. And I never looked back. So that's the best advice I can give somebody who's looking to kind of take that leap, because it is scary and it's terrifying and it's still hard. And I know people that work in corporate, and they definitely make more money than me. They definitely have bigger houses than me and a bigger bank account than me. But I also see their stress, and I see what they deal with to provide that thing for their family. And I'm like, you know what? I'm good here. Like, this is good for me, you know?
It's like Janelle said, you're wealthier in other ways.
Yes, absolutely. You're wealthier.
And those same people will tell him and us, I want to do what you guys are doing.
I'm like, you want to be me?
Like,
I'm
what?
Like, okay. Well,
like, but you can, like, you have like,
you just
really
came back from Greece. Like, and he's like, yeah, but you know what I had to do for that? Like, you know, how hard I had to work, you know, what type of sacrifices I had to make for that. So I'm good with like a quick trip to the New Smyrna or something, you know, but I'm going on like a Tuesday, you know, so it's a little bit different, you know?
Yeah.
But
it's
hard.
It's a lot of freedom in that.
It's definitely.
And I think that's good advice too, because I feel like right now, especially post-COVID, it seems like everyone's quitting their job. Everybody's turning their side hustle into a full-time business. Yeah. And you see that on social media and you think, well, why can't I do that? But you do need to have the nest egg first.
You do. I just think it's doing that like haphazardly is reckless.
And I think a lot of people, you know, social media, just to touch on that before we go, is a weird thing for small businesses, because it gives you kind of a skewed look as to the bright side of small business ownership, and the easy parts, or what you think are easy. And, you know, it's Instagram versus reality, you know, so what you see, you're not going to post the sleepless nights, you're not going to post the 6 a.m. wake ups, you're not going to post, you know, the stressful moments. You're going to post all the successes and all the pretty stuff. And some people might have a mate or a partner that has a corporate job that makes a lot of money, they can spend all their time doing whatever it is that they want to do. You just never know the situation. No. So like, we're the real deal. Like, we are true entrepreneurs in the sense that we're just completely committed to it. We don't have anything to back us up. If
there's no security,
this thing goes belly up, we're kind of,
we are our own security net.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, people, you know, can get a little down on themselves because they see like, oh my God, all these businesses on social media, it looks so easy. And, you know, the fast grab of, you know, digital products and the way the world is like evolving. For me, it's like, I don't trust it. I know what works and I know what's real. And hard work has always been the backbone of what we do. And we'll never take the short way out. But yeah, sometimes social media can be a little, what is it? Rose-colored glasses with how easy this can be. And it's not easy, but it is definitely, it's worth all the effort.
You can look at our store and be like, oh, that's so cute. And it's aesthetic and all of these nice things. And there was no camera there videoing how awful it was when we moved into that building. And my father was watching our 3-year-old or our 2-year-old at the time. And we were in there on our hands and knees. I was putting baccarat,
killing cockroaches,
I was fumigating. I was skimming walls. He was rented scaffolding that I didn't even know how to put together. And he's up on the scaffolding. I'm pushing him around and he's spraying.
Never used paint sprayer in my life.
Oh my gosh.
We didn't hire people to do that stuff.
We didn't have the means. We couldn't afford it. We just couldn't. So we just did it ourselves. And now
it can be pretty grimy.
I mean, we just painted the floor 2 weeks ago. I was back painting the floor. Constant. I was back painting the floor again, you know? And so it's hard, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
Doesn't it make you think of the piles of furniture on the side of the road a little bit differently now? I know it's still a lot of work to turn things around and be successful in the way that the Schwartzes have, but I think it is such a cool thing that they are doing and allows them the freedom to be with their son, Sebastian, more and just create a life that isn't tied to anyone else's time clock. I love it. Thank you so much for listening to Beyond the A Block. If you liked this episode, please share it with your friends so other people can join the community as well. And we'll see you next time.